Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Frontline. This is Colonel David Giammona, and we have our sponsors with us today, which is wonderful. Freedom Square, that's really been great friends of this ministry for a while now, and here at the NRB. We're reporting to you at the NRB in Orlando at the great resort, World Marriott. And we had just a wonderful show. We're going to be talking about Freedom Square. And so with them, we have the CEO, Tom Sodeika of Freedom Square, and Lindsey Graham. Tom and Lindsey, great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, David. Good to be here.
I think I got that name right. Let's look at that real closely. Sodeika.
Sodeika.
I
Yes,
got
sir.
it. Okay. Tom, you talked a little bit before the show and during the week. You started Freedom Square really at patriotism, I think.
Yes, sir.
In a lot of ways. Tell us, we're going to talk about what Freedom Square is in a moment, but tell us what led you into, becoming the CEO. Tell us about your family and the ties with communism at one point and all the things that happened to you.
David, yes, thank you. And want to congratulate you really on a great show. You've been having some great guests, and appreciate you having us on.
Absolutely.
We're honored to be in the trenches with you. And the genesis of Freedom Square, it goes back to the experiences and the knowledge that I had growing up in America. My grandparents and parents, while my parents had not met yet, both families had to escape Lithuania, which is a Baltic country, small Baltic country on the border of Russia and the Baltic Sea. They had about 24 to 48 hours, respectively, to pack up and leave everything and get out of town. At first, the Germans had moved in and did a lot of damage, of course. And then the Russians moved in, and with the Russians moving in, there was no room for God. There was no room for business. There was no room for any aristocracy or education. And on my mother's side of the family, her brother was a freedom fighter, and the Russians found out his identity, and they were going after the family. And in those days, anybody that was caught resisting and fighting, they would look to wipe out the entire nuclear family.
Wow.
So they got word from their neighbors and friends that they were coming for them, and they just packed up and left. And based on where they were in the country, for them it was easier to get to Poland, but then they eventually ended up in Germany at displaced persons camps. And on my father's side, they were closer to Germany, that when they escaped with about 24 hours notice, same thing. They went into Germany, and they spent 5 years in displaced persons camps, awaiting an invitation and come to the United States.
Tom, when people have never gone through those kinds of things, like my parents went through the Great Depression, it really affected their lives. I mean, in everything they did, that Great Depression, they hoarded stuff, they, saved money. And when people come out of communism and they come out of, that antagonism into freedom, it affects them.
Absolutely. And I remember growing up, in fact, I was born in America, and when I went to kindergarten, I didn't know how to speak English. And I'd asked my mom why they didn't teach me English. Well, she said for some time that it was because they didn't want me to learn the language with an accent. But okay, that was weird. After my father passed about 4 years ago, she finally said, well, we thought we were going to be going back to our home country. We were waiting to go back anytime we could. So even with their longing desire to go back, which they never did, they taught us. While my friends are playing baseball and doing that Saturdays, I'm doing Lithuanian school with my mom in the dining room. And I'm like, oh God, why am I doing? And as a kid, you're like, why do this stupid stuff? Well, now I have a second language that's not very common. But I understand and love the heritage of our family. But more importantly,
Yes.
they taught us a love of America and the freedom, and what she saw as a young woman standing on the deck of the steamer coming into New York,
Wow.
looking at the Statue of Liberty,
Yeah.
and them counting their blessings with all they had were their bags with maybe 7 days worth of clothes that they had with them, and just thinking about the opportunity of freedom. And they were so grateful for that. And my father's family came in through the port of New Orleans. Now, back in those days, they waited 5 years because they had to get sponsored. They had to pass health exams, and the adults had to have work assignments. So, but it took time for all of that to get organized and happen. And when they came over, that's what happened. Unlike immigration today, seems a little bit willy-nilly and a little bit forced, it seems. But the important thing that they taught me was the love and appreciation of America, and that it gave freedom to so many families who were under oppression, be it Mao's China,
Right.
Stalin's Russia, Castro's Cuba, for that matter,
Mussolini. Yeah.
Mussolini. Exactly.
Yeah.
Where, had they stayed, they would likely not have lived.
We're going to get deeper into that. There's a book I really love by Richard Wurmbrand called Torture for Christ. And he has similar stories about what happened in Romania, which is not far from Lithuania.
Right.
And interesting. But I want to bring Lindsey into conversation. Our patriot, Barbie. You love America, maybe a different way than Tom. You didn't go through the same kinds of experiences. Why are you part of Freedom Square and all the great things that we're going to talk about Freedom Square in a moment? But why are you part of all of this?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Tom, thank you for building this amazing platform that allows us to be part of it. Freedom Square is an amazing company. I got my political awakening in 2020, like a lot of people. And as soon as I started getting political and speaking out, speaking truth, I've been to platforms, as you can imagine, on Facebook twice. YouTube censors me constantly, repeatedly. Thank you. And I'm discovering that free speech isn't as free as we would like. And so much of my platform is, news, breaking news, spreading news, getting my podcast out there, which gives other patriots a platform. And Freedom Square is a hub where all of that can live, and I don't have to worry about being censored or being deplatformed. So it's incredible to be able to support a company like that, and to also have them come alongside me and say, we know what you're doing, we love what you're doing, and we partner with you in your group.
So in your, how long have you been associated with Freedom Square at this point?
I've been aware of them and partnered up for about a year and a half when they first launched at Amvest in 2021. But I've been their director of media relations for about 6 months.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So Tom, we're going to pass the microphone back and forth.
Yes.
You can pick up that mic, by the way, Lindsey, in front of you to use that directly. Tom, tell us about Freedom Square. What is it? How can people get involved with it? What can it do for people and companies at this point? And why is it such a patriotic type of theme?
So if I could to sort of finish that,
Yes.
the genesis and bringing it forward, that having grandparents and parents experience what they did and sort of instill this awareness of tyranny and what tyranny looks like. Sort of, you get a radar as you're going through life. You're like, well, that doesn't seem right. That seems a bit oppressive, or that seems a bit fascist or tyrannical. And all of a sudden, I would say, and it's interesting because we know the Christian community's been under attack
Oh, absolutely.
for almost from the day it was born.
Oh, yeah. 2,000 years.
And one of the reasons we built Freedom Square is that I don't think we want to be gathering in catacombs to read Adam Smith's Wealth of Nation or read the
Wow.
Bible or serve a mass. So,
Yeah.
we need to stand up. We need to stand up now. An interesting thing, when the Soviet Union fell, all of these Soviet blocs from the Asian area, the Eastern European countries, and we had talked about Romania and Hungary and Poland, One of the most beautiful things was Pope John Paul II working with Reagan and Thatcher and Lech Walesa to, really begin the massive undoing that was the movement for freedom. That was an unbelievable thing. And you think back to 1991 and the late 80s and 91 when it all happened. And the people, when it fell, the people hit the streets. They went to their town squares. They went, they gathered to celebrate freedom. And in those cases, there were countries that were under the tyranny for 40 years, 50 years, some even longer. And many of these towns, many of these villages named their town squares Freedom Square.
Yeah.
To celebrate the freedom that the community got. So that's where the name Freedom Square comes from, recognizing those people who were once under tyranny that came forth in their freedom, which reminds me a little bit of, if you've ever read the Declaration of Independence, which if anybody listening has not, I urge you to read it.
I hope they have.
Yeah, I'm sure with your audience, they've been assigned because you want to read the Declaration of Independence, because it was, again, a people breaking away from the tyranny.
Yes.
And setting a course that I truly believe God's hand was firmly involved in the forming of this nation.
Oh, absolutely.
There's really no other organizing document amongst mankind that recognized God as the final authority and the source of rights. And then our government being organized in a limited fashion, primarily geared towards protecting those rights.
Tom, no, I was, because of time and
Yes, I'm sorry.
No. We want to get deep into this, but because of that, I wanted people to know. They're probably asking, what is Freedom Square?
What is Freedom Square?
I know it's a platform and it's IT and it's all that, but can you tell people what it is and how they can get involved with it?
Yes, I can. And thank you for moving me along. I can get lost in history so easily. The Freedom Square, when we decided to build Freedom Square, is over the years experience of working with other conservative, libertarian, strong individual people, we find that, boy, what a great group of hardworking, patriotic, God-loving, family-loving, country-loving people. But boy, we run so independent. So we needed a space large enough to where we could all come together, still run in the same direction.
Wow.
We're not going to march in lockstep like the left does. I mean, those folks are just so comfortable in tyranny and being told what to do, and how sad, and how sad for them. But so we decided, let's make a very large digital landscape. We call it a digital commonwealth.
Oh, I like that.
Where-
Commonwealth, yeah.
Where we want to bring sort of the 7 pillars, the 7 mountains. We want to bring the community in its totality available on the internet. So we came up with freedomsquare.com, and the initial development, we came up with sort of a four programmatic areas to help people to start coming together. And that is news. We scrape 39 different news sites about every 5 minutes.
Wow.
We've got podcasters. I think we're approaching 130 podcasters, and we're adding every week some incredible voices. Some everybody knows, and then there's some others who are just starting, and voices like Lindsey's that everybody should know, because there is incredible information, a message, courage being transmitted. Courage can be very, what's the word? Oh my goodness. Thank you. Contagious. Thank you. Could be very contagious. We've also got a business network that we are bringing businesses together and bringing their attention to our Freedom Square members and partnerships, so that they can shop these folks. And finally, resources. If you went to our resources page, you could spend a day and get a very good understanding of the facts of America.
Oh, yeah. I've
And-
been there. I've seen it.
And great historical
Yeah.
but also current features. You can go on there and see what the current debt is, who holds our current debt. It's a little surprising. And also tools and patriots, where we found other organizations that we want to let others know about, to go there, to support them, to use their resources, because you will get informed, you will get empowered.
So
Yeah.
they can go onto their iPhones, they can go onto their Androids, they go on computers, they go anywhere and get hooked up with Freedom Square.
Right, on the internet, I mean, just go to freedomsquare.com. You get a chance to register, and that's just an email and setting up a password. But that allows you to listen to podcasts right from our platform. You just hit it and go. Businesses can sign up and register, and we're also in the app stores for the time being.
Wonderful. Lindsey, going back to you, you've been interviewing lots of people right next door to us all week long. What kinds of things are you hearing and talking about? What are the talking points throughout the week?
Well, a lot of the people that I've been interviewing are, players in the faith game. But what we are is players in the political game. And a lot of people are starting to say that it's time for Christians to get in the political game. It's time to be quiet and say, I'm not political. That time is over. We're looking at, the mutilation of children, the murder of babies. These are subjects that they're not political. They're moral. They're spiritual.
That's right.
And so I love seeing the Christian community come together and start embracing patriotism as a value that needs to be addressed.
That's one of the reasons you're at the National Religious Broadcasters Conference, because, we're trying to merge, here at Frontline, we're all about battle ready and preparing people. And we're not just preparing people spiritually. We want to prepare them at every level, because, we have a chapter in the Army. When you go to war, if you just prepare one way and not the other, if you don't have logistics, if you don't have beans and bullets, you're not going to win the war. You're not going to survive. So we need each other in these end times. We need folks like you that will, put these platforms together so we can talk to each other. Because Tom, don't you think there's coming a time where we're going to need something like this, because we can't get anywhere else?
Absolutely. And I will tell you some of the things that came up during the COVID crisis, the COVID pandemic. One of the things that I saw that was a very sort of Stalinist move was our mayor at that time. What the heck was her name? Oh my God, I can't believe, what was our mayor's name?
We can't hear you.
What's that?
We can't hear you.
What was our mayor's name? Lori Lightfoot.
Oh, yeah.
Lori Lightfoot.
No wonder you forgot.
Yeah, Lori Lightfoot installed a phone number for Chicago residents to call and tattle on their fellow.
Are you serious?
Yes, Chicagoans who were having gatherings of 4 or 6 or more. And so that, and so many people, and it was broadcast on the news, and nobody stopped to say, this is really jumping the shark. This is going too far. And that is what happened so much in the communist countries, is that the collaborators were encouraged to tell on their friends, oh, they're holding a mass on Sunday at their home. And then the Stasi would break down the door and arrest everybody for praying.
Richard Wurmbrand, in his book Torture for Christ, he was tortured for Christ, by the way, for 14 years.
Wow.
Under the communist regime in Romania. And he tells the stories of pastors turning in their own parishioners to the communists because they weren't towing the party line, and they would be imprisoned and tortured. And because pastors wanted to protect themselves and their families, so they would tattle on other people. And I have a feeling that was going on in Chicago.
Absolutely. And that's why we built Freedom Square. We built it also on a resilient platform. I'm sure eventually attacks will come. We've officially launched March 1st. We did open up in a beta environment last year, but brought it back down to retool it because we caught some things that were not going to make us as scalable as we need. So we went through the entire retooling. And so now you can also get us on the App Store. And like I said, very easy is just to register with an email. You'll get a password, verify the email, and you're good to go. And we send daily updates as to things that are happening. And we also provide some unique content. We've had some great interviews. Lindsey does a great job for us.
I know she has.
I could sing her praises all day. She engages.
Sing my praise.
Uh, she's talked to our Major General Paul Valley, who is a board member of ours,
Yes.
and has had
great thing.
incredible,
Yeah.
incredible experiences and stories with many of our, even some of our followers that have had some exciting things that they've actually stood up, shown some courage. Our businesses, we try to get all of our businesses profiled, and we want to spread the message. We're trying to pull everybody together and raise that tide, because all of ours, we'd like to see everybody's cash flows improve. We're going to need those resources. As like you said, to fight the war correctly, we've got to have the fuel, we've got to have the arms, we've got to have the training. But the thing that gives me the most hope is that we have God and we have truth on our side. Because it is amazing. Lindsey, who's experienced speaking the truth and getting attacked for it, it's never a thing. It even sounds surreal to say it.
Yeah,
That this is happening in our country.
I actually, Lance Wallnow tells of the story, and Lance, I don't know if he's here this week, but his all of his assets in his bank were frozen just recently, and a big bank, national chain, and he went to tell them, why are you frozen? Because basically the bottom line is we're afraid of what you're doing with that money, because it's given to ministry and they didn't like what it was going. So there's a huge lawsuit, but that's not the only person. Others have their assets frozen. And in the future, I think it's going to continue.
Yeah, I'm on the board of a great youth organization, and one of their members, one of their officers, corporate officers, was told to leave Bank of America because they didn't like his politics.
Yeah.
And this was out in Arizona, and I thought, boy, I mean, folks, it's here. The tyranny is here.
Oh, yeah.
I know we keep asking for people to wake up, and you need to wake up, learn from the lessons of the past. Those who sat by in Germany and thought, oh, they're just coming for my neighbors. You know what? We've seen a lot of people already come under attack from a two-tier justice system. Well, and it's going to continue to happen.
Well, Tom, I got to tell you something. Some people will never wake up. They will continue to put their head in the sand. Pastors will do that. But those who will wake up, they'll live to fight another day. Lindsey, parting words as we're closing the show now. We have, yeah, we have just burned through 25 minutes, and it's really been intense. So, yeah.
Podcasting.
Wow.
Well, parting words, to all the patriots and all the Christians that are getting in the fight, that are answering the call to Christ to speak up in this culture, being aware of your surroundings, what's going on in this world. It is a spiritual battle more than it is a social battle or a cultural battle or a political battle. We're looking at what God tells us will be our persecution. It's not going to look like us being nailed to a cross, but it is going to look like being called names, being slandered, being threatened, being harassed. We're all going to go through it if you speak truth. But for those that are speaking truth, that are standing up, speaking up, we appreciate you being in the battle, and also enabling and supporting those that are on the front lines as well.
Yeah, we're glad to be in the trenches with you. And Tom, parting words for our audience.
Well, I'll just say that we appreciate you, Colonel, very much. At Freedom Square, we don't recognize the separation of church and state, or should I say the separation of God and anything, because we take God into everything. And that gives us the courage, that gives us the faith, and that gives us the hope. We're not done. We've just begun the fight.
We just started a fight.
And honored to be able to say hello to your listeners and to have Lindsey join us. I very much appreciate her and our team and what you guys are doing. And I look forward to working with you and being in the trenches.
Absolutely. We are in the trenches already. And the greatest compliment I can tell anybody is I'd go to war with you any day. And I really would.
Thank you, sir. Likewise.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here at the NRB. Thanks for joining us today. Continue on. We have other great shows coming up. And so the question remains, are you battle ready?